The War Council chamber aboard the flagship dreadnought Eternal Fong smelled like victory and overconfidence. In hindsight, that combination was lethal. My name is Krell Voss. As Supreme Military Coordinator of the Galactic Concordance, I had personally orchestrated the total submission of 47 worlds. 47 species had knelt before our armada. When our war fleets entered a star system, species surrendered before our particle lances even charged. Then, we found Earth. The primitives have received our final ultimatum, announced General Thax Quinn. His 4 yellow eyes gleamed with cold malice as he tapped the holographic console. 72 standard hours to offer complete and unconditional surrender. If they fail, we reduce their continents to glass. Loud chittering, satisfied hisses, and sharp clicks filled the council room. 3 days. 72 hours. We thought we were being merciful. Most species didn't even get a formal warning. We would simply destroy a moon to show our strength, and they would drop to their knees. Their military specs are hysterical, General Quinn added, pulling up high-resolution scans of the human home planet. Primitive chemical rockets. Fission-based atomic explosives they actually think are devastating. No energy shielding. No plasma technology. They haven't even achieved faster-than-light travel on their own. I leaned back in my command throne, my sensory tendrils twitching with satisfaction. Have they responded to our message? They have, Quinn replied, a sarcastic curl on his mandible. They requested an immediate formal meeting. They are sending an ambassador to negotiate terms. A wave of laughter rippled through the chamber. Negotiate, scoffed Science Officer Melayer, her scales shimmering in amusement. What could a pre-FTL species possibly negotiate with? Humor them, I instructed, waving a claw dismissively. Let their envoy come aboard. It will be entertaining to watch them beg. Record the interaction for the historical archives. Future conquests always enjoy watching their predecessors grovel. I didn't know it then, but the universe has a cruel sense of humor. The human shuttle docked exactly 12 standard hours later. Most species spent their final hours in complete panic, building useless barricades or crying out to their deities. Humanity didn't wait. They sent a representative right away. When the human vessel materialized on our view screen, my sensors registered a blocky, metallic box held together by what looked like external rivets. Primitive metal plates. No stealth coating. Should we scan it for weapons? Asked Security Chief Voral Kess, his heavy battle armor clanking as he adjusted his stance. For what? I laughed. Are they going to throw rocks at us? Note to self, never say things like that. The airlock hissed open, and the envoy stepped into our council chamber. She was tiny compared to Concordance standards, barely reaching the chest of my lowest guard. She wore no combat armor, carried no visible sidearms, and possessed no mechanical augmentations. She wore a tailored black cloth suit, her auburn hair pulled neatly back. What stopped me in my tracks were her eyes. Clear blue-green eyes, staring back at 50 armed alien commanders with bone-deep, terrifying composure. She wasn't hiding her fear. She genuinely was not afraid. Greetings, her voice resonated steadily through her chest-mounted translator. I am Ambassador Victoria Grant. Thank you for granting me this audience. I straightened up in my throne, lowering my tone to radiate absolute authority. Ambassador Grant. You understand the situation your world faces. Total surrender within 60 standard hours, or total planetary annihilation. Victoria Grant smiled. It wasn't a nervous twitch. It was a pleasant, polite smile. I understand perfectly, Coordinator. In fact, that's precisely why I'm here. I have a counter-proposal. The entire chamber fell dead silent. I beg your pardon. I muttered, convinced the translator matrix had glitched. Victoria pulled a slim, black glass datapad from her pocket. She tapped the surface, projecting a floating star map between us. You gave Earth 72 hours to surrender, Ambassador Grant said softly, her blue eyes locking onto mine. I am here to tell you that you have 3 hours to turn your fleet around and leave our solar system. If you do not, humanity will dismantle the Galactic Concordance, piece by piece. General Quinn choked on his own breath. Melior's scales turned ash-white. Borel-Kess instinctively took a step back. I felt a cold prickle run up my neural ridge, the ancient concordance reflex for incoming danger. You cannot be serious, I whispered. I am deadly serious, Victoria replied. Her polite smile suddenly sharpened into something dark and predatory. You see, General, you made 3 catastrophic errors when you scanned our planet. And those errors are about to cost you your entire empire. She stepped forward, unbothered by the heavy guards aiming energy rifles at her heart. Do you want to know what we hide in the shadow of our moon? She asked. Science Officer Melior was the first to regain her composure, though her scales twitched nervously. This is absurd. Our science vessels scanned your entire world. We analyzed your radio frequencies, mapped your power grids, and logged your defensive networks. You are primitives playing with fire. You scanned what we allowed you to scan, Ambassador Grant countered effortlessly. Her voice cut through the tension like a fresh blade. You looked at our surface, saw iron tanks and jet fighters, and assumed we were helpless prey. You never bothered to look deeper. Deeper. I leaned forward, unable to suppress my curiosity despite the ridiculousness of her threat. What could a surface-bound species possibly hide from long-range sensor grids? Victoria picked up her data pad and casually tossed it onto the central strategy table. Tell me, Coordinator. In your 47 galactic conquests, have you ever met a species that invented nuclear weapons before they mastered atmospheric flight? I paused, searching my memory banks. No. Have you ever encountered a species that went from their very first powered aircraft to stepping foot on their moon in just 66 years? I frowned. That is statistically improbable. Technological progression requires centuries of methodical testing. Have you ever seen a species strap themselves to thousands of gallons of explosive rocket fuel and blast into the void of space? Simply because they were too impatient to wait for safer technology? General Quinn sneered, beating his chest armor. Recklessness is not strength, human. It is suicidal foolishness. It isn't just recklessness, Victoria corrected him gently. It's an indicator. Every species the Concordance has conquered developed logically. You prioritized safety, efficiency, and structural balance. You advanced in neat, predictable steps. You are reasonable. And humans are not. I asked. Coordinator, we are the most unreasonable creatures you will ever meet in this universe, Victoria said, her eyes burning with an intense, haunting pride. We are the species that looked at apex predators on our world and decided to domesticate them. We looked at extreme heat, crushing ocean depths, and freezing deserts, and built cities inside them. When nature gives us a boundary, our immediate instinct is to destroy it. She pointed up toward the ceiling of the dreadnought, referencing the open vacuum of space beyond. You scanned our orbit and saw a massive space station, she continued. You logged it as an oversized, primitive communication satellite and ignored it. Did you ever ask yourselves why a species without FTL capabilities built something so unnecessarily large? Melior's manipulators flew across her console, bringing up the architectural scans of Earth's orbital platforms. Her eye stalks widened. It lacks standard solar panels. The internal mass readings are dense. Extremely dense. What is inside that station, human? General Quinn demanded, his voice losing its previous arrogance. Tungsten, Victoria answered smoothly. Solid, multi-ton cylinders of pure tungsten steel, suspended on automated kinetic launch tracks. Thousands of them. A heavy silence fell over the room. No nuclear warheads. No plasma batteries. No energy signatures for your long-range scanners to pick up, Victoria explained, pacing slowly around the strategy table. Just raw mass and gravity. We call them rods from God. When we release one from orbit, gravity accelerates it to Mach 10. By the time it hits the surface or a capital ship, it strikes with the force of a tactical nuclear blast. No fallout. No radiation. Just pure, kinetic annihilation. You weaponized gravity itself? Melayer gasped, her voice trembling. We've had them floating above our heads for 30 years, Ambassador Grant said, her smile vanishing completely. And you missed them because you were looking for energy signatures. You were looking for a civilized enemy. Cold dread began to bleed into my stomach. As a military strategist, I knew the math. Kinetic bombardment required zero fuel once launched. It couldn't be jammed by electronic warfare. It couldn't be hacked. It was literally throwing heavy rocks, at hypersonic speeds. Even if this is true, General Quinn stammered, gripping his sidearm holster, a few dozen tungsten rods cannot destroy an entire armada of 300 capital warships. Our shielding would hold. You're right, Ambassador Grant agreed, nodding pleasantly. The kinetic platforms are just our welcome mat. Would you like to hear about Project Scorched Earth? I wanted to order my guards to vaporize her right then and there. Every tactical instinct inside me screamed to end the conversation. But my curiosity, and my growing terror, kept me silent. Tell me, I ordered softly. Ambassador Grant folded her arms behind her back, taking a deep breath like a professor preparing to lecture a room of young students. For the past 70 years, the major nations of Earth maintained vast arsenals of intercontinental ballistic missiles, she began. Publicly, we told our citizens we were decommissioning them, signing treaties, and reducing our nuclear stockpile. She paused, looking directly at General Quinn. In reality, we were upgrading them. We converted thousands of long-range ICBMs into orbital payload delivery systems. Right now, as we stand in this room, over 800 nuclear warheads are sitting in hardened subterranean silos across our planet. Fitted with orbital maneuvering thrusters. Science Officer Melayer let out a strangled, whistling sound, the concordance sign of utter shock. You built thousands of atomic weapons, aimed at your own skies. Every single warship in your fleet is currently hardlocked by multiple targeting radars, Victoria revealed. Her tone was completely casual, as if she were reading off a weather report. They aren't fancy. They don't use high-yield antimatter or stealth fields. They are brute force, crude atomic devices. Hundreds of them. All pointed directly at your engines. You are insane. General Quinn roared, slamming his fist onto the console. If we fire our primary cannons, your planet burns. If you launch those primitive missiles, your atmosphere will be saturated with radioactive fallout. You would destroy your own ecosystem. Yes, Victoria said. The single word hung in the air like a heavy iron weight. There was no hesitation in her eyes. No bluff. No doubt. You would murder your own world. I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Humanity developed a military doctrine during our global Cold War, Ambassador Grant explained, her blue eyes narrowing. We call it mutually assured destruction. MAD. The core principle is simple: if you have the power to destroy me, and I have the power to destroy you, and we both know that neither of us can survive the conflict, then nobody shoots. She stepped right up to General Quinn, looking up into his four wide, terrified eyes. We adapted that doctrine for interstellar contact, she whispered. If an alien empire comes to take our home, we will not be conquered. We will not be enslaved. If we are going down, we are taking you with us. The silence in the war chamber was absolute. In my 47 conquests, I had fought noble warrior species who fought to the last man. I had fought cowardly empires that surrendered at the first sign of orbital bombardment. I had fought religious fanatics who threw themselves into plasma fire. I had never, in my entire life, encountered a species whose entire defense strategy was built on suicidal planetary spite. You cannot destroy the entire concordance with crude atomic bombs, I pointed out, trying desperately to find a flaw in her logic. Even if our fleet perishes here, our homeworlds remain. Our empire spans 7 sectors. We don't need to destroy your homeworlds, Victoria replied smoothly. She tapped her datapad once more, altering the floating projection. The moment your fleet fires a single shot, automated communication arrays throughout our solar system will broadcast a high frequency. Unencrypted data burst across all commercial and military channels in this sector. She looked around the room, making eye contact with every single member of my High Council. In that data burst, we are releasing the complete blueprints, engineering schematics, and manufacturing steps for every single dirty weapon we have ever created. Kinetic kill platforms. Orbital nukes. Chemical agents. Asymmetric guerrilla warfare manuals. We are sending it to every subjugated planet in your 47 conquered systems. My neural ridge went completely numb. Do you understand what happens then, Coordinator? Victoria asked softly. Your empire relies on high-tech dominance. You maintain control because you hold energy weapons and FTL ships while your colonies have nothing. What happens when 47 oppressed species realize they don't need FTL travel to kill your garrison fleets? What happens when they start dropping tungsten rods on your command centers? The tactical nightmare unfolded in my mind with terrifying clarity. If humanity shared their low-tech, hyperlethal blueprints, the Concordance wouldn't just lose a fleet. Our entire civilization would ignite into dozens of simultaneous, unsuppressible planetary rebellions. This is blackmail, I managed to say, my breath catching in my throat. This is negotiation, Ambassador Grant corrected instantly. You came here expecting an easy conquest because we looked primitive. I am simply showing you the true cost of your ignorance. She held up 3 fingers on her right hand. Now, Victoria said, her voice turning sharp as shattered glass. Let me give you your actual options. The human ambassador stood in the center of our war room, holding up 3 fingers. A single, unarmed alien female was dictating terms to the supreme command of the grandest fleet in the sector. Option 1, Victoria said, dropping her first finger. You withdraw your fleet immediately. You jump out of our solar system and never return. In exchange, we do not launch our kinetic platforms. We do not transmit our weapon schematics to your subjugated worlds. We pretend this embarrassing encounter never happened, and you keep your empire intact. General Quinn growled under his breath, his mandibles twitching in rage, but he didn't dare speak. Option 2, she continued, dropping her second finger. You attack us. Your superior plasma weaponry will undoubtedly burn our cities. Millions of humans will die. But before our atmosphere turns to glass, your fleet will be reduced to glowing scrap metal by our nuclear arsenal. Our automated arrays will broadcast our war schematics across the galaxy. Your conquered worlds will rise up, and within 10 years, the Galactic Concordance will cease to exist. She held up her final finger. Option 3, and this is my personal favorite. You surrender your claim of conquest. You acknowledge that Earth is a sovereign, untouchable territory. You sign a mutual non-aggression and defense pact. You give us access to faster-than-light engine schematics, and in exchange, humanity becomes your ally. I stared at her, stunned. An ally? Think about it, Coordinator, Victoria said, a subtle, highly dangerous warmth returning to her tone. We are terrifyingly good at warfare. We have spent thousands of years perfecting the art of killing each other. Imagine having a species like us on your side when your next real threat emerges. You are bluffing, General Quinn snapped, taking a threatening step toward her. You walk into our flagship, make impossible claims, and demand our most guarded technology. You are a master actor, human. Nothing more. Victoria didn't flinch as Quinn towered over her. She slowly reached up, checked a small mechanical device strapped to her wrist, a primitive watch with moving metal gears, and looked back up at the general. "Would you like to test that theory, General?" she asked softly. The air in the room grew freezing cold. "I promise you," Ambassador Grant continued, her voice echoing off the metallic walls, "you gave Earth 72 hours to surrender. But if you press that attack button, you won't last 3 seconds." Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. For 30 agonizing seconds, the only sound in the council chamber was the soft ticking of the human's wrist device. Every commander in the room was running the math. Could our energy shields absorb 300 nuclear warheads at point-blank range? Could our point defense lasers destroy thousands of hypersonic tungsten rods falling from orbit? Even if we won the battle, could we survive the galactic rebellion that followed? Winning didn't just mean destroying the enemy. Winning meant surviving the victory. And humanity had ensured that victory was impossible. "How long do we have to decide?" I asked quietly. Victoria glanced down at her wrist again. "You gave us 72 hours. I will give you 72 minutes. I suggest you use them wisely." She turned on her heel and began walking calmly toward the airlock doors. Her leather shoes tapped rhythmically against the metal floor plates. At the threshold of the airlock, she paused and looked back over her shoulder. "Oh, and Coordinator." "Yes." My voice sounded hollow, even to my own ears. "Everything I just told you. The rods from God, the ICBMs, the data broadcasts." Victoria offered one final, chilling smile. "That's just what we were willing to tell you about. That's the technology we don't mind you knowing." She tilted her head. "Imagine what we kept secret." The airlock doors hissed shut, leaving 50 alien conquerors standing in utter, stunned silence. The 72-minute countdown timer on the main display began to tick down. The moment the airlock fully sealed, the War Council chamber erupted into chaotic shouting. "This is madness!" General Quinn roared, slamming both upper appendages against the tactical hololith. "We are the supreme military authority of the Concordance. Are we truly going to let a single, weaponless primitive intimidate us? If she was telling the truth about those kinetic rods." Science Officer Melayer stammered, her scales shifting into a sickly, stressed gray color. "If those projectiles are already in position, our shields cannot deflect solid mass traveling at orbital entry speeds. Physics doesn't care about our technology, General. We have point defense lasers." Quinn shouted back, his eye stalks red with anger. "We can vaporize incoming physical projectiles. Not thousands of them simultaneously." Chief Vorolkes interjected. His heavy armor creaked as he stepped toward the central terminal. "I just ran a rapid combat simulation based on her claims." I slammed my palm onto the command armrest. "Report, Chief. What do the numbers say?" Vorolkes pulled up a glowing simulation display. Red dots representing human warheads flooded the screen, overwhelming our blue fleet icons. "Assuming Earth launches only 10% of their claimed nuclear stockpile," Kess reported, his voice devoid of its usual arrogance. "Our automated point defense systems will successfully intercept roughly 68% of the warheads. 68% is an acceptable casualty rate." Quinn argued stubbornly. "General, look at the math." Kess barked back, his voice rising. 68% interception means 32% impact. That is over 30 high-yield nuclear detonations striking our fleet at point-blank range. At minimum, we instantly lose 12 capital dreadnoughts, and another 20 suffer catastrophic hull breaches. We would lose nearly half our strike force in the first 4 minutes. A heavy, suffocating silence swept through the room once more. "And that simulation," Kess added quietly, "assumes they don't use the tungsten rods first to knock out our sensor arrays. What about their technological growth?" Melayer asked. pulling up historical timeline data she had scraped from Earth's public networks. Look at this developmental curve. It isn't a standard logarithmic curve. It's a vertical wall. I leaned closer to her terminal. Explain. Most civilized species take 10,000 years to move from basic industrial tools to atomic energy, Melayer explained, her voice shaking. Humanity went from riding animal-drawn carts to detonating atomic bombs in less than 150 years. They went from their first primitive wooden airplane to stepping on their moon in 66 years. She pointed at a spiking red line on the graph. If we engage them, and if even a fraction of their civilization survives, their rate of technological adaptation means they will reverse engineer our fallen warships within 5 years. In 10 years, they will build their own FTL armadas. And they will come for us. I felt an icy lump form in my throat. You're saying humanity is already an apex predator. I am saying, Melayer replied, that humanity built a society entirely centered around surviving overwhelming force. They don't fight like us. We fight to capture territory and resources. Humans fight to annihilate the threat, regardless of the cost to themselves. General Quinn paced back and forth across the platform, his heavy boots echoing loudly. So what are you proposing, Coordinator? That we surrender? That we bow our heads to a planet that hasn't even left its own solar system? I am proposing we look at reality instead of our pride, General, I snapped. I looked up at the countdown timer hovering in the center of the room. 42 minutes remaining. Melayer, I commanded. Dig deeper into their cultural history. I want to know everything about how humans conduct warfare. I want to know if Ambassador Grant was exaggerating. Or if we just woke a monster. Melayer's manipulators flew across her console, pulling down historical records, military archives, and cultural media from Earth's satellite networks. A few seconds later, her eye stalks went completely wide. Coordinator. You need to see this. The holographic display filled with thousands of glowing red nodes, mapping out human conflict history across 3,000 years. Incredible. Melayer whispered, her voice trembling in awe and terror. Coordinator, according to their own recorded history, humanity has been in an active state of global or regional warfare for over 92% of their existence. 92%. General Quinn gasped. Stopping mid-stride. They've almost never had peace. Never, Melayer confirmed. And look at how they innovate during conflict. In their second global war, a conflict that resulted in over 60 million casualties, they invented radar, jet engines, long-range ballistic missiles, and atomic weapons. All within 6 single years. 6 years. Most concordant species spent 6 decades debating the ethical protocols of basic rocket fuel. Look at their Cold War period, Melayer continued, scrolling through massive data streams. 2 major global factions threatened each other with complete nuclear extinction for 40 years. They didn't even fight a direct war, yet they turned their entire global economy into a weapons laboratory. Stealth technology, global computer networks, satellite tracking, all created simply out of fear of the other side. I stared at the data in stunned disbelief. They don't just adapt to war. War is their primary evolutionary driver. And look at their entertainment media, Voral Kess added, pulling up millions of human books, films, and digital simulations. A vast portion of their popular culture is dedicated to imagining alien invasions. What? Quinn blinked in utter confusion. They make entertainment out of being attacked. Dozens of scenarios, Kess said, scanning through titles. In almost every single story, an advanced, technologically superior alien empire invades Earth. And in almost every story, the humans suffer massive casualties, adapt, learn the enemy's weaknesses, and ruthlessly destroy the invaders using unconventional tactics. The terrifying truth hit me like a plasma blast to the chest. Ambassador Grant didn't improvise that strategy today, I said, my voice barely audible. Her entire species has been theorizing, writing, and preparing for an alien invasion for generations. They've played this scenario out in their minds millions of times. They fantasize about being the underdog who slays the giant, Melayer added. It is their core cultural myth. Coordinator. Voralkes suddenly called out, pointing at a live intelligence feed monitoring Earth's communications. Look at their planetary network right now. I turned to the main screen. In the 72 hours since we delivered our ultimatum, every major geopolitical conflict on Earth had instantly ceased. Border disputes were dropped. Economic sanctions were lifted. Rival military superpowers were openly sharing intelligence and integrating their planetary missile grids. They were divided into hundreds of warring factions 3 days ago, Kess whispered. The moment we threatened them, they unified instantly. Of course they did, I said bitterly, gripping the edge of the console. We did the one thing that guarantees a human victory. We gave them a common enemy. The clock on the wall blinked silently, 18 minutes remaining. Chief Kess, I said, turning to my security lead. Run one final combat simulation. Give our fleet every advantage. Surprise attack, full orbital bombardment, heavy plasma shielding. What are our odds of a clean victory? Kess touched his console. The holographic simulation ran through millions of variables in seconds. When the result appeared, the text flamed deep red. Projected Concordance fleet losses, 38% to 100%. Projected enemy surrender probability, 0%. They won't surrender, Kess said, looking up at me with dead eyes. Even if we reduce their surface to ash, their surviving orbital units and underground silos will keep firing until their last missile is expended. They don't fight to win, Coordinator. They fight to make sure we lose. I looked around the room. The arrogance that had filled the chamber hours ago was gone, replaced by the grim realization that we were standing at the edge of an abyss. 10 minutes left, Quinn said softly, his former aggression entirely vanished. What is your command, Coordinator? The red numbers on the war room display pulsed steadily. 50 high-ranking officers of the Galactic Concordance stood around the hololith, waiting for my decision. Option 3, I declared, my voice echoing clearly across the room. We accept the humans' terms. General Quinn swallowed hard. His 4 eyes shifted uncomfortably, but for the first time today, he didn't raise a single objection. He had seen the combat simulations. He had read the human history. The High Council on our homeworld will demand an explanation, Quinn muttered quietly. Our reputation as conquerors will suffer. Our reputation will survive a diplomatic compromise, I countered sharply. Our fleet will not survive a nuclear meat grinder. Besides, look at what Option 3 actually offers us. I brought up the treaty terms Ambassador Grant had left on her datapad. We avoid a catastrophic military disaster, I listed. We maintain the stability of our 47 conquered systems. And in exchange for FTL engine schematics, we gain a formal military alliance with the most dangerous, creatively lethal species in the known galaxy. An alliance with gravity weaponizing deathworlders, Melayer murmured, a faint hint of relief returning to her tone. From a tactical standpoint, having them on our side of the border is far safer than leaving them outside it. Exactly, I said. If we destroy Earth today, we ignite a galactic rebellion. If we ally with Earth, our subjugated worlds see business as usual. The Concordance remains intact. And what happens when the humans expand into space? Voralkes asked pragmatically. In 2 or 3 generations, with FTL technology, their population and military power will explode. Then we make sure they view us as trusted partners, I replied firmly. Because the alternative is turning them into an enemy that will chase us across the stars until our civilization is dust. I stepped up to the primary subspace communications console. 2 minutes remaining. Open a direct channel to Ambassador Grant's shuttle, I ordered the comms officer. The screen flickered to life. Ambassador Victoria Grant sat calmly in the small pilot cabin of her primitive craft. She was sipping a dark liquid from a ceramic mug, completely unbothered by the ticking clock. Coordinator Krell Voss, she greeted, setting her mug down. I trust your counsel reached a logical conclusion. I took a deep breath, collecting every ounce of my dignity. Ambassador Grant, I announced formally. The Galactic Concordance accepts your terms. We will immediately withdraw our armada from your star system. We recognize Earth as a sovereign, non-target world, and we invite humanity to join the Concordance as an independent member species with full defense rights. A slow, genuine smile spread across Victoria's face. There was no arrogance in it. No childish gloating. Just the quiet, terrifying satisfaction of a master strategist whose plan had executed perfectly. An excellent decision, Coordinator, she said smoothly. I will transmit the formal non-aggression documents to your vessel immediately. I look forward to a long, peaceful, and mutually beneficial relationship. As do we, Ambassador, I replied. I hesitated for a moment, looking at her composed face on the screen. The question that had been burning in my mind since she first stepped onto my ship finally broke through my professional composure. Ambassador Grant? Yes, Coordinator. Before we sign this treaty, I asked quietly, everything you told us about your weapons. The thousands of tungsten rods, the hundreds of orbital nuclear silos, was it all true? Victoria's smile broadened, taking on that sharp, predatory edge one last time. Would it matter if it wasn't? She asked softly. The screen cut to black as the transmission ended. I stood there in complete silence, realization washing over me like ice water. It didn't matter if it was true. It only mattered that we believed it. We just got completely outmaneuvered by a species that hasn't even mastered basic FTL travel, General Quinn said, staring at the blank communication screen in utter disbelief. Yes, I agreed softly, letting out a heavy breath. Yes, we did. What do we tell the High Council? Chief Voral Kess asked, stepping back to his station. We tell them the truth, I instructed, turning to face my entire war council. We tell them we encountered a species so strategically terrifying, so militarily creative, and so utterly unconcerned with their own survival that a war of conquest would have bankrupted our empire. We tell them we made the tactical choice to recruit them before someone else did. And if the council questions our courage? Quinn asked. Then we show them the human history files, I said flatly. We show them 6,000 years of continuous, horrific warfare. We show them a world that invented nuclear weapons before they built safe airplanes. And we invite any council member who disagrees to bring their own personal fleet here and try their luck. Nobody argued. Navigation, I commanded loudly, my voice restoring order to the bridge. Plot a jump course out of this solar system immediately. Signal all capital ships to disengage targeting locks and fall back to concordant space. Orders acknowledged, Coordinator, the helm officer reported. Armada disengaging. I walked over to the grand viewing port at the front of the bridge. Outside, the bright blue marble of Earth rotated peacefully against the black void of space. From up here, it looked fragile. Innocent. A delicate oasis of water and life hanging in the dark. It was hard to believe that beneath those white clouds lived billions of apex predators who weaponized gravity, tamed monsters, and looked at annihilation as a viable defense strategy. We had almost made the fatal mistake of judging a species solely by their technological aesthetic. We saw metal rivets and chemical fuels, and assumed they were weak. We forgot that true lethality doesn't come from the sophistication of your weapon, it comes from the mind of the creature holding it. As the heavy FTL drives of the dreadnought Eternal Fong hummed to life, bending spacetime around our hull, I took one last look at the blue planet. They had been given 72 hours to surrender. Instead, they had defeated a 47-world empire in 72 minutes, without firing a single shot. The space around our fleet folded, and in a flash of blue light, the 300 warships of the Concordance armada vanished into hyperspace, leaving Earth behind, untouched and unconquered. And as we jumped into the void, a single chilling thought remained anchored in my mind: we came to Earth to add world number 48 to our empire. Instead, Earth became the very first world to conquer us.